I've been a long-haul truck driver for most of my adult life. 14 years on the road, crossing states I can barely remember, sleeping in parking lots, drinking too much gas station coffee. People think trucking is boring, but the road can mess with your head if you're out there too long, especially if you're already running from something. For me, it was my divorce. 2 years ago, my wife packed her things and left a note on the counter saying she was done trying. After that, the truck became my home. Easier to stay moving than sit still with my thoughts. By last fall, I was working for a mid-sized company out of Cheyenne, Wyoming, high mountain transport. Good people, mostly older drivers who'd been on the road since before GPS existed. My closest friend out there was a guy named Brent. Talkative, always cracking dumb jokes, always buying the worst gas station snacks known to mankind. We usually left around the same time at night and convoyed as far as our routes matched. Everything about that life felt predictable. Routine, safe. Then October rolled in, and things stopped feeling safe. It started on a cold Friday around 3:40 a.m. Remember, because the air burned when I stepped out of my truck. The company lot was quiet, just rows of rigs sleeping under the floodlights. I was checking my tires when I noticed someone walking between the trailers. Tall, wearing a dark green jacket with the hood up, hands stiff at his sides. Not a driver. Not anyone I recognized. I called out, "Hey, you're not supposed to be back here." He didn't turn. Didn't slow. Just kept walking down the row like he was looking for something, or someone. When he reached the end of the last trailer, he stopped. Stood there for a few seconds, head tilted up like he was listening. Then he slipped around the corner and vanished. I figured he was some drunk wandering through, but something felt off. The way he moved, too smooth, too sure. Like he had a purpose. When Brent arrived 10 minutes later, I told him. He laughed. Probably a meth head, man. This town's full of them. But even he locked his cab doors that night. 2 days later, one of our drivers didn't show up for his shift. Jack. Older. Guy, quiet, never late. Dispatch called him all morning. Nothing. By noon, the sheriff's office found his truck parked on a gravel turnout 20 minutes. Outside town. Driver's door wide open. Engine off. Keys on the floor. No signs of a struggle. No tracks except Jack's footprints leading around the truck. And then stopping. Like he'd walked a few steps and disappeared. Everyone at the yard got jumpy after that. Even Brent stopped joking. I tried not to think about the man in the green jacket. Tried to tell myself it wasn't connected, but I didn't believe my own lies. The next weird thing happened on a Tuesday night on Highway 85. It was around 1 a.m., barely any cars. Just endless black road and wind howling across the plains. I'd been driving for hours when I saw someone standing on the shoulder ahead. A tall silhouette. Green jacket. Hood up. He wasn't hitchhiking. He wasn't waving. He was facing the highway, staring straight at my truck as I approached. I slowed down, thinking maybe he was hurt. But as I got closer, he stepped backward into the darkness, so smoothly it didn't look real. When my headlights flashed over the spot he'd been standing, there was nothing. No footprints. No movement. Just empty road. My hands tightened on the wheel. My throat felt dry. I grabbed the CB. "Brent, you hearing me?" His voice crackled through. "Yeah, what's up?" I just saw him again. Brent sighed. "Dude, you need sleep." But he didn't sound convinced. 2 nights later, I stopped at a dusty, half-lit gas station outside Sterling, Colorado. It was one of those 24-hour places that always feels like it's 3 a.m., even when it's lunchtime. A single clerk sat behind the counter, watching something on her phone. As I walked in, the door chime squealed. The clerk looked up. Young woman, tired eyes. "You drive for High Mountain?" she asked, glancing at my jacket. "Yeah, why?" Her expression shifted, like she suddenly wasn't sure if she should talk. "That guy who went missing. He stopped here earlier that night. Bought coffee, said he felt like someone was following him." She paused. "Said a man in a green jacket kept showing up wherever he parked." My stomach dropped. "You see him?" I asked. She nodded slowly. "Once out near the air pump. He was weird, just standing there watching the trucks. Didn't even blink when the wind blew dust at him." My hands went cold. "What happened?" I whispered. He walked away when one of the drivers yelled at him. But an hour later, that missing guy came back inside. to ask me if the store had cameras. She looked down. We don't. My chest tightened. Before I left, she lowered her voice and said, "If you see that man again, don't get out of your truck." After that night, I couldn't relax. Every rest stop, every way station, every dark patch of road, it all felt wrong. I kept seeing movement out of the corner of my eye. Kept checking my mirrors. Brent tried to lighten the mood, but even he was rattled. Then one night, everything snapped. I'd pulled into a remote rest area in northern Colorado. The kind with one flickering light, 2 vending machines, and a bathroom that feels haunted even though you know it's not. I'd barely turned off the engine when movement flickered in my mirror. A figure. Tall, green jacket, walking slowly toward the back of my trailer. My heart slammed against my ribs. I locked the doors, killed the interior lights, sat frozen. The figure stopped directly behind my truck. Out of sight. For 3 long minutes, nothing happened. Then, tap, a light knock on the back door of my trailer. Just one, like he was testing if I'd hear it. I grabbed my phone with shaking hands and dialed 911. Before the call connected, movement flashed past my side window. He was walking toward the driver's door. Not running. Not sneaking. Just calmly approaching, like he knew I had nowhere to go. I dropped the phone and shoved the truck into drive. The tires screeched on the icy asphalt as I pulled out of the parking spot. Through the side mirror, I saw him standing in the middle of the lot, watching me. Head tilted, hands at his sides. Not chasing, not yelling, just watching. The next morning, a driver from another company was reported missing. His last known stop? The same rest area. Sheriff's deputies searched the woods. The bathrooms, the nearby road, nothing. I gave a statement, told them everything I saw. They asked me if I could describe the man. Tall, medium build, green jacket, I said. Dark hair. Doesn't talk. One deputy muttered, "We've gotten a few reports of a guy like that the past month." How many, I asked. More than we'd like. My boss offered to put me on daytime routes, but I needed the money from long hauls. So I stayed on nights. Stupidest decision of my life. On a snowy Wednesday at 2 a.m., I stopped at a tiny diner off I-80. Brent was supposed to meet me there, but he never showed. I called him, no answer. The waitress, a middle-aged woman with red hair and kind eyes, poured me coffee. "You okay?" she asked. "Just tired," I said. "Long week." She studied me. "You're the 3rd trucker tonight asking if we've seen a guy in a green jacket." My stomach nodded. "What did they say?" I asked. One of them said the guy followed him inside the bathroom. Just stood behind him while he washed his hands. Didn't say a word. My blood ran cold. I left the diner fast, heart racing, scanning the lot. No green jacket. Only snow. But when I climbed into my truck, something felt wrong. A weird smell, like sweat and cold metal. And on the passenger seat, a folded piece of paper. I stared at it for a long time before touching it. Inside, written in shaky handwriting, "You keep driving away from me, but the road always brings you back." My chest tightened. My head buzzed. I started the engine and drove without looking anywhere except the road ahead. When I merged back onto the highway, I checked my side mirror. A lone figure stood at the edge of the on-ramp. Green jacket, facing the highway. Facing me. Brent never came back to work. His truck was found 3 days later on a service road. Door hanging open, engine running. They didn't find him. I quit trucking last month. Started working at a hardware store, daytime only. Trying to sleep at night again. Trying to feel normal. But here's the part I can't shake. Last week after a snowstorm, I walked to my car in the morning. Fresh snow, untouched, except for one set of footprints. Leading right up to my front door. Stopping at the welcome mat. No footprints leaving, just stopping. And on my windshield, under the wiper, a small piece of paper. "You made it home. I can too." I didn't sleep that night. Or the one after. Because sometimes when the wind hits the house just right, I swear I hear soft footsteps on the porch. And I keep thinking about that green jacket, and the way he always seemed to find the road I was on. Like he wasn't following me by accident. Like he'd picked me. From the beginning. I've been driving trucks for around 18 years now. Mostly hauling hardware and farming supplies across Nevada, Idaho, and Wyoming. Not a fun job, not a bad one either. Just miles of empty road and cheap diner food. After my breakup last winter, I pushed myself into work even harder. Anything to keep my mind off my apartment and how quiet it felt. On the road, the silence made sense. At home, it just felt like failure. One night, I was parked behind a rest stop just outside Twin Falls, finishing a cold burger and fighting sleep. My next load wasn't until morning, so I was ready to grab a few hours of rest. Then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Normally, I'd ignore it, but something made me swipe. "You James Hall?" a man asked. His voice was too calm, too flat. "Yeah, who's this?" "I heard you take private hauls sometimes." My chest tightened. "Who told you that?" "Someone who trusts you." That didn't feel right. I didn't take under-the-table jobs often, and when I did, it was usually from people I knew. "What are you offering?" "A simple pickup. No paperwork. No questions. Deliver it tonight. You'll get paid." "How much?" He chuckled softly. "Check your bank." My phone dinged. Deposit $3,000. My stomach tightened. "Why so much for one haul?" "I like reliable drivers," he said. "I'll text you the address. Be there in 30. The call ended. I stared at my phone. This was the type of job that could get someone fired or worse. But rent was late, my truck's transmission had been acting up, and I didn't have the luxury to say no. 10 minutes later, a text came in, an address on the outskirts of a tiny place called Horsebend, Idaho. When I arrived, the area looked more like an abandoned truck yard than a business. A weak floodlight flickered above a gate. A man stood nearby, tall, wearing a clean gray jacket, his hands in his pockets. Could have been 30, could have been 50. His face didn't show anything. "You haul?" he asked. "Yeah." He walked over to a covered flatbed trailer behind him. On the bed sat a large metal container, the kind you normally see used for equipment storage. It was dented on one side, rust on the edges. "Back your rig up," he said. "What's inside?" I asked. "Tools, old ones." His answer was too fast. "Why not use a regular shipper? They can't handle it right now." He handed me a folded envelope, $1,000 in cash. "Don't open the container," he added. "Deliver it to the address I send after you start driving." That raised every red flag in my head. But I hooked up the container anyway. Money talks, especially when your life has been falling apart. By the time I secured everything and checked the straps, the man was gone. No car, no engine noise, nothing, just gone. I tried to shake off the uneasy feeling creeping up my spine. I climbed into my cab and started the engine, telling myself it was just another shady haul. I didn't believe myself. I took the back route the man told me to take. Avoid main highways, avoid way stations, avoid busy areas. That alone made my stomach twist. Around 1 a.m., the road went quiet, too quiet. No trucks, no cars, just me and the hum of the engine. The container behind me rattled a little, metal echoing on metal. Then I heard it, a dull thump. I froze. Maybe something shifted inside? Maybe tools fell? I turned the radio off. Another thump. Then a scrape, slow, long. My fingers tightened on the wheel. "Not doing this tonight," I muttered. I told myself I was tired. Hearing things, thinking too hard. But 20 minutes later, I hit a small bump and something, inside the container, slammed hard against the side. Not like a box. It sounded heavy, deliberate. I pulled over on the shoulder, grabbed my flashlight, and stepped out. The cold air slapped my face awake. The container sat on the flatbed, silent now. But when I aimed my flashlight at the dented side, I froze. The dent was deeper. Fresh. The metal was bent inward from the inside, like something had pushed it. My breath got stuck in my chest. I checked the locks. Thick steel, sealed, no tampering. Nothing weird on the outside. I got back in my truck, shaking. I tried calling the man. Straight to voicemail. As I drove, something inside the container shifted again. Slow, heavy, not random, not gear falling over, something moving. Around 3 a.m., my phone buzzed. "You're late. Keep driving, no stops. Do not check the cargo." I typed quickly with shaking hands. "There's movement inside. You need to tell me what's in there." No reply for a full minute. Then, "Don't open it. For your safety." My safety? That's when I knew something was really wrong. By 4:30 a.m., my nerves were shot. The container made small creaks and drags, like someone brushing their hand across the inside wall. My brain screamed at me to pull over, open it, dump it, anything. But the man's warning kept echoing in my head. At the edge of some forgotten town called Pine Hollow, I saw something up ahead, a figure standing on the side of the both then still staring at my truck as I approached. A girl, maybe 16, maybe a little older. Hoodie, jeans, backpack hanging loosely off one shoulder. I slowed down without thinking. She stepped into the beam of my headlights and lifted her hand, signaling me to stop. I rolled down the window a few inches. "You okay?" I asked. Her voice shook. "Are you James?" I froze. "How do you know my name?" She looked over my shoulder at the container. Her face went pale. "You're the one driving it," she whispered. Every hair on my neck stood up. "What's in it?" I asked. "You need to get rid of it," she said. "Right now. Take it off the road." My heart hammered. "Tell me what's inside." She swallowed hard. "My brother, or what's left of him." My blood ran cold. "What?" "He went missing last year," she said, voice breaking. "He was last seen getting into a truck with a man in a gray jacket. A man who takes people and puts them in containers like that." I grabbed the wheel tighter. "You're telling me there's—" She shook her head quickly. "Not alive. But you need to understand something." She pointed to the dent in the container. "That wasn't there when they took him." My stomach dropped into my feet. "So what moved inside it?" I whispered. Her eyes filled with panic. "James, the man who hired you isn't delivering bodies. He's delivering messages, threats, warnings, pieces of people, to families, to enemies, to anyone he wants to scare." My mouth went dry. "Why me?" "Because you don't ask questions." My chest tightened. "Then why are you here?" "Because he told me where you'd be," she whispered. "He wants me to see what he's sending. And he wants you to be involved." My heart sank. This wasn't a delivery. This was a setup. A warning. A trap. I grabbed my phone and dialed the man. He answered instantly this time. "You made a friend," he said calmly. "How sweet." "You sick bastard," I snapped. "You used me." "You're getting paid well," he said. "Now finish the job." "I'm calling the cops." "No," he said. "You won't." "And why the hell not?" "Because the girl's family's watching your truck right now." "Because your route, your brakes, your apartment address." "I know all of it." My chest tightened until my ribs hurt. "You don't want to make enemies," he said. "Not with the people waiting for that container." I looked at the girl. She shook her head slowly, terrified. My phone buzzed again. A new text from an unknown number. "If you open that container, we will open you." My hands trembled. The girl whispered, "James, don't deliver it. But don't open it either, please." "What do I do then?" I whispered back. She took a shaky breath. "You run." "And then what?" Her voice cracked. "There is no then, not with him." I looked in my side mirror. A dark SUV had pulled onto the road behind us. No headlights, no plates. Just waiting. My phone buzzed again. "Drive now, or you won't make it to sunrise." I put the truck in gear, heart pounding so hard it made my vision shake. The girl stepped back from the window. Her face twisted with fear and something that looked like guilt. "James," she said softly. "I think he wanted me to warn you." "I think he wanted you scared." "Why?" I asked. "So you remember him?" I didn't understand. And then she said the last thing I've heard her say. "He said he'll call you again." The SUV behind me revved its engine. I slammed on the gas. The road blurred. My hands shook. The container behind me rattled like something was shifting inside again. Harder this time, faster. I kept driving. I'm still driving. I don't know where to stop. I don't know who's behind me. I don't know what's inside that container. But I know it's not just tools. And I know the man isn't finished with me, because as I write this on my phone, pulled over behind a truck stop miles from anywhere, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. And I already know who it is. I've been running delivery trucks since I was 21. I'm 39 now, and I've worked every kind of route you can imagine. Coastal highways, frozen mountain roads, desert stretches so empty you start talking to yourself just to stay steady. I've always been careful, almost too careful according to my old coworkers. I plan everything, fuel stops, rest breaks, even backup places to pull over if something goes wrong. 3 months ago I was between jobs after a warehouse layoff. Bills were stacking fast, so I took some temp runs for a small company out of Spokane, Washington. Nothing crazy, mostly furniture deliveries and electronic pallets to stores around the Northwest. But one night run out toward northern Idaho changed the way I see quiet roads forever. That week had been rough already. My sister was in the hospital after a car accident, and I hadn't slept more than a few hours each night. I wasn't in the right mindset for long hauls. But money was money and I needed it. The job was simple. Drop off office desks in Sandpoint. Pick up returns, come back before morning. Simple. Around 11 p.m. I hit a stretch called Black Timber Road. A narrow 2-lane cutting through thick forest. No houses, no towns. Just tall pines leaning over the road like they wanted to swallow it. My GPS showed a small pull-off by a service trail, and since I'd been driving nearly 4 hours straight, I figured I'd take my 30-minute break there. The rain started the moment I slowed down. Cold, slanted rain that made the whole world look blurry. I eased the truck into the gravel spot and shut off the engine. The silence after the engine died felt heavy, like it had weight to it. I stepped out, stretched my back, and walked toward the edge of the trees to splash water on my face. My flashlight beam shook a little. I told myself it was just the cold. Then I heard an engine behind me, a single car coming down the dark road. No big deal, I thought. But as it got closer, something felt wrong. The car slowed when it reached my truck. Slowed way too much for someone just passing through. I turned toward it, trying not to look jumpy. It was an old dark blue SUV. Windows tinted way darker than legal. It rolled by at a crawl, then stopped. Fully stopped. I froze with my wet hands hanging by my sides. After maybe 5 seconds, the SUV moved again, slowly turning the bend until its taillights vanished behind the trees. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. I should have gotten back in the truck right then. But I didn't, and I regret that more than anything. I locked the door and climbed back into the cab. I looped the seatbelt through, the handle out of habit, extra security never hurts on lonely roads. The rain pounded the roof hard, steady as a drumbeat. I cracked open a small energy drink and tried to distract myself with weather updates. 10 minutes passed. Then I heard it. Crunch! Footsteps on wet gravel. I sat up straight. At first I thought maybe a deer wandered too close, but animals don't walk that slow, that steady, like each step is placed on purpose. Crunch! Crunch! My heart thudded so loud I felt it in my teeth. I grabbed my phone and pulled the curtain back just an inch. Someone was out there. A man. He stood near the back of my trailer, soaked from head to toe, wearing a light-colored jacket that clung to him from the rain. He wasn't moving, just standing, looking at the truck. "Hey!" I shouted through the glass before I could stop myself. "You okay out there?" He didn't answer. He didn't even turn. He took another slow step along the side of the trailer, then another. He wasn't running or stumbling, just walking like he knew exactly where he was going. I dropped the curtain and backed away from the door. "Come on, man," I whispered. "Not tonight. Not like this." Another step. Then he was right by my door. He tapped the metal. Soft at first. Tap, tap. Then harder. Tap, tap. "What do you want?" I yelled, voice cracking. Silence. I reached for the keys, jamming them into the ignition. The engine tried to turn, but the starter coughed. Cold engine, wet conditions. Of course it would choose now to act up. "Come on," I muttered. Outside, the man leaned close to the window. I could hear his breathing, heavy and uneven, fogging the glass. Then he spoke, voice low and shaky. "You're not supposed to park here." I froze. My hand hovered over the ignition. "Why?" I asked. He didn't answer. Instead, he reached out and touched the door handle. I slammed down the lock button even though it was already locked. His hand stayed on the handle, fingers tightening like he was testing it. "Back off," I said, louder this time. "I'm calling the cops." He let go. But he didn't walk away. He just stood there, breathing hard, facing the door. I didn't take my eyes off him. Not even for a second. After maybe 20 seconds, he stepped back from the truck and started circling it. Slow, calm, like he was looking for something. Or checking something. I grabbed my flashlight and pointed it through the front windshield. Through the blur of rain, I saw his face for the first time. Mid-40s maybe, pale. Wet hair plastered to his forehead. His eyes were wide, too wide, like he hadn't blinked in a while. I shouted through the glass, "You need help or something?" He tilted his head. "You shouldn't be here," he said again. Not angry, almost scared. "I'll move," I said quickly. "Just let me start the truck." He stepped forward fast, shaking his head hard. "No, not now. Not when he's watching." My stomach dropped. "What are you talking about?" I asked. He pointed behind him toward the tree line. I followed his gesture. No one was there, just tall pine trees and darkness, but his hand kept shaking like he was pointing at something I couldn't see. "I don't want trouble," I said. "Just go." He clenched his jaw, then walked backward toward the woods. But before he reached the trees, he stopped again. That's when I saw something he'd hid under his jacket. A metal bar, long, rusty, like something ripped from an old gate. He lifted it just enough for me to see before lowering it again, like he wanted me to know what he had but didn't want to fully show it. The message was clear. He wasn't just some lost hiker. He turned and disappeared into the trees, swallowed by the dark. I didn't breathe for at least 10 seconds. Then I tried the ignition again. The engine roared to life. I didn't wait for anything else. I put the truck into drive and rolled out of that spot so fast the tires kicked up mud. But as I hit the curve in the road, headlights flared behind me. A car. My heart nearly stopped. It was the same dark blue SUV I'd seen earlier. It had been waiting, following. The SUV pulled onto the road behind me, keeping perfect distance, not close enough to tailgate, but close enough that I knew it was no coincidence. Every time I sped up, they did too. Every time I slowed a little, they matched it. My hands were sweating so much I kept wiping them on my jeans. "Please don't come closer," I whispered. "Please." But the SUV suddenly surged forward, closing the gap until its headlights flooded my mirrors. Then it backed off. Then surged again, like someone playing a game. A very bad one. I stayed on Black Timber Road until I hit the nearest gas station 20 miles later. The SUV stopped following me about a mile before that, turning abruptly onto a dirt service road with no signs. I pulled into the gas station, shaking so bad I almost dropped my wallet. Inside, the clerk, a young guy with long hair and tired eyes, looked up and said, "Dude, you look rough." "Someone followed me," I said, voice low. "Some guy stopped by my truck. Had a metal bar. Said I shouldn't be parked there." The clerk frowned. "On Black Timber?" "Yeah." He looked even more uneasy. "People go out there to dump stolen stuff. Or worse, cops avoid that area at night." I nodded, but it didn't help. Not even a little. I stayed inside until a couple more customers came in. Then I went back to my truck and checked the door. There were scratches on the paint. Long ones. Metal on metal. Made by something like that bar he carried. The security camera above the gas pumps pointed toward the entrance. Not toward the road. It didn't catch the SUV, it didn't catch the man. Nothing to prove what happened. On my drive back to Spokane, I kept checking my mirrors. Every pair of headlights made my chest tighten. Every slow turn behind me made my palms sweat. And the worst part? 2 days later, when I walked out of my apartment to go to work, I saw something sitting on the hood of my car. A small piece of rusted metal. Bent, dirty, like it broke off something old. Or someone dropped it on purpose. There was no note, no scratch on the car, nothing else. Just that piece of metal. I threw it away immediately, but sometimes at night, when the roads outside go quiet and the houses settle, I think I hear that metal bar dragging across the side of my truck again, and every time I drive past a forest road or a dark turnout, I swear I see a dark blue SUV slowing down. Just a little, like it's checking to see if I'll stop again. I don't. Not anymore, and I don't think I ever will. I've been hauling loads across the Southwest for almost 15 years. Furniture, pallets, farm equipment, nothing exciting. Just asphalt, diesel, and long, quiet nights where the only company is the hum of the engine. After my divorce last winter, the quiet didn't bother me anymore. If anything, it fit. My dispatcher had started giving me extended night runs, the kind most drivers avoid. I took all of them. Miles didn't judge you. Miles didn't ask why your marriage fell apart. They just kept passing beneath your wheels. That night I was coming back from a late delivery outside Gallup. I'd been awake for too long, running on cheap gas station burritos and lukewarm coffee. The desert air had cooled, but the cab still felt stuffy. Around 10:45 p.m., I pulled into a half-dead rest area just off I-40, 2 flickering lights, a cracked vending machine, and a single dusty pickup parked crooked near the far end. I got out to stretch my legs. The sky was wide and starless, that kind of pitch black, where the desert feels like it's swallowing the edges of the world. That's when I saw her. A woman sat on the curb near the trucker's lot, hoodie pulled tight, Jean's dusty duffel bag hugged close to her body. Medium build, maybe late 20s, hair tied in a loose bun that looked like it had survived a windstorm. I didn't make eye contact. Nighttime strangers can be trouble, and I'd had enough of that in life. But as I opened my cab door, she stood abruptly. "Hey, sorry, wait." Her voice wasn't scared, just worn down like she hadn't slept in days. "You heading east?" she asked. "More or less," I replied cautiously. "Why?" "Need a ride?" "Just until Klein's Corners. My driver ditched me." She hesitated. "I've been out here for hours." She didn't look dangerous. No wild eyes, no twitchy hands, just tired and alone. I should have said no. I should have trusted that bloom of unease rising in my chest, but loneliness has a way of making bad decisions feel reasonable. "All right," I said. "Get in." She exhaled like someone finally loosened, a knot in her ribs, and climbed into my truck. I wish I could tell you I felt good about it. But the moment she shut the door, something in the air shifted, like the night itself held its breath. Her name was Rhea. She said she'd been backpacking across small towns, picking up odd rides from strangers. I asked where she was headed, but she never gave a clear answer, just away from here. For the first 15 minutes, she barely spoke. She kept glancing out the side mirror, then back at the darkness behind us, like she was expecting a car to appear. "You all right?" I finally asked. She nodded too quickly. "Just a rough day." Her foot tapped the floor nonstop. Not nervous, more like bracing for something. "You drive nights often?" she asked suddenly. "Pretty much all the time." "That must get lonely." "Sometimes." She stared at me a moment too long. Lonely nights attract the wrong things. I didn't know how to respond to that, so I forced a laugh. "Bad luck and bad coffee, yeah." But she didn't smile. She reached down and pulled her duffel onto her lap. It wasn't big, but she held it like something inside mattered too much. "You ever feel like someone's tailing you?" she asked. "Not really." "You're lucky," she murmured. Then she twisted around and stared straight out the back window. She didn't blink, didn't shift, just stared at the pitch-black road like something was running behind us. After a long minute, I said, "Rhea, you expecting someone?" "No." She said it fast, too fast. Then she added quietly, "I just need to make sure he isn't following." My hands tightened on the wheel. "Who's he?" She didn't answer, just hugged her duffel tighter. A few miles before Klein's Corners, she jolted upright. "Don't exit here." "You told me Klein's." "No," she snapped. "Just keep going." Her tone chilled me. That tired, worn-down voice from earlier was gone, replaced with something rigid and frayed. I swallowed hard. "Rhea, you're making me uneasy." "You have to tell me what's happening." She closed her eyes for a long moment. "You picked me up. That makes you part of it now." "Part of what?" Again, no answer. I kept driving mile after mile, feeling her tension bleed into the air around us. And that's when I realized I'd brought the wrong passenger into my truck. We were about 10 miles past Clean's when she whispered, "Slow down." "We're practically alone out here," I said. "Why would—" "Just slow down." The sudden sharpness in her voice made my nerves snap. I eased onto the brake. That's when something tapped the passenger side window. Not a bang, a light, deliberate tap. I jerked the wheel, heart slamming. The truck swayed toward the shoulder, gravel spitting out beneath the tires. "What was that?" I barked. Rhea didn't look at me. She stared at her window, face pale, eyes wide. "He found us." My mouth went dry. "Who?" She lifted her hand and pointed out toward the darkness. "There." But there was nothing. No headlights, no cars, no silhouettes. Just open desert. "I don't see anything." "He doesn't always show himself," she whispered. My pulse hammered. "You're scaring yourself." "No." She turned her head slowly toward me. "I'm scaring you." Her duffel unzipped slightly as she reached inside. I couldn't see what she touched. But the moment she did, every hair on my arm stood up. "Rhea," I said carefully, "tell me what's in the bag." She ignored the question. "You should have kept driving," she murmured. "He likes it when trucks stop. He gets closer when they do." I forced myself to breathe evenly. "Rhea, I'm taking you somewhere bright. A diner, a rest stop. Anywhere with people." "No place is safe for long," she said. "Not with him." My throat tightened. "Who is he?" She didn't answer. Instead, she looked out her window with a hollow expression, like she was remembering something. Burned too deep to forget. The silence inside that truck felt thick enough to choke on. And every time I looked in the mirror, I half expected to see someone running behind us on the dark road, when the lights of a small 24-hour travel plaza appeared near Moriarty. I pulled in fast, heart pounding. "You can get out here," I said. "There are people around, cameras." Rhea didn't move. "Bright places slow him down," she whispered. "He hates bright places." "Rhea," I said, fighting the panic in my voice, "you need to tell me who he is." She finally unzipped her duffel fully. My chest tightened. Inside lay photographs, dozens, maybe hundreds. Every single one showed the same man. Tall, hood pulled over his head, face blurred by shadows, standing just far enough to look like he didn't belong, behind a fence, beside a stop sign in the corner of gas station lots. In every picture, he was turned toward the camera. Watching, my voice cracked. "Where did you get these?" "I didn't," she said. "He slipped them into my bags, into motel rooms, into glove compartments. He leaves them wherever I stop." "Why?" "To remind me he's already there." My skin went cold. "Rhea, what did you get mixed up in?" She gave a small, bitter smile. "I left someone I shouldn't have." "And he doesn't forgive." I stared at her. "So he's tracking you?" She shook her head slowly. "No, he's tracking the road." Her eyes locked onto mine. "He watches the drivers who pick me up. Long route ones. The lonely ones." I felt my heart sink like a stone. She touched the door handle. "Don't haul alone for a few nights. He notices the ones who help me." "Rhea," but she was already stepping out. She crossed the lot, bathed in bright white light, then disappeared into the plaza. I sat frozen, hands trembling against the wheel. After a minute, I forced myself to pull out of the lot. As I turned onto the road, something made me check my mirrors. There, on the far edge of the parking lot, stood a figure. Tall, hoodie up, unmoving. Watching. I blinked hard. Looked again. His head was tilted slightly toward the highway, toward me. I drove faster. All the way back to Albuquerque, I checked my mirrors every few seconds. And even when I got home, even after I locked the door, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd dragged something dark into my life. Some nights, when I'm hauling freight down empty stretches where the guardrails vanish into shadow, I still see someone standing just beyond the reach of my headlights. Still, silent, facing me, and I can't tell what's worse. That he's real, or that he followed me home. I've been a long-haul courier for about 12 years now, mostly running deliveries between Wyoming and South Dakota. People think the job is peaceful, and yeah, sometimes it is. But when you spend night after night on empty roads with nothing but your headlights and old radio songs, your head starts doing weird things. Not scary things, just little jitters that make you overthink every shadow. My name's Logan Pierce, 33, divorced, no kids. The road keeps me paid, but it also keeps me lonely. My ex used to say the silence would eat me up someday. Maybe she wasn't wrong. That night, I was hauling a trailer full of home improvement supplies from Casper to Rapid City. I planned to stop at a familiar rest area near a place called Red Hollow, but a road crew had blocked the exit. My GPS kept recalculating like it was panicking, and I got pushed another 50 miles out of my route. It was past midnight when I realized I hadn't seen another car in almost half an hour, not even a distant glow in the rear view. Just the soft whine of my tires in a dark stretch of highway. That looked the same no matter how far I drove. My legs were stiff. My bladder was screaming. I couldn't wait for an official stop anymore. So I pulled over on a skinny shoulder next to a long row of unlit ranch land. I left my hazard lights blinking, climbed out, and stretched until my back cracked. Cold wind blew dust across my boots. The night felt heavier than usual, the kind that presses on your skin like it's waiting for something. After I finished my business, I leaned against the truck and pulled out a bottle of water. That's when I noticed it, a single figure moving along the fence line, maybe 30 yards out. At first I thought it was a rancher checking livestock, but the shape moved too slow, like it wasn't really walking, more like drifting along the posts. I squinted, trying to tell what I was looking at, and then it stopped. It turned toward me. A man, alone, middle of nowhere. My stomach tightened before my brain even caught up. I didn't call out, didn't wave. Something about him felt wrong. Not dangerous yet, just wrong. His outline didn't fit the stillness around us, like he was standing too straight, too stiff. I capped my water fast and climbed back into my truck. But the moment I shut the door, the man started walking toward me. Slow, direct, no hesitation. My throat dried up. "Not tonight," I muttered, slamming the lock button down. He kept coming. I grabbed my phone from the cup holder, pretending I wasn't shaking. The man reached the edge of the shoulder, but stopped just outside the sweep of my headlights. I could only make out his outline, tall, lean, wearing a dark zip-up jacket and jeans. He raised a hand like he wanted me to open the window. "Not happening." I cracked the glass half an inch, just enough to talk without giving him a chance to reach in. "Hey, you need something?" My voice came out steadier than I expected. He didn't answer right away. His head tilted a little, like he was studying me. Then he said, "Do you have a phone?" Something about the way he asked made my skin crawl. Not the question, just the flatness in his tone. No panic, no rush. Just blank. "Yeah," I said. "You okay? You hurt or something?" "No," he said. And then he smiled. Not a big smile, just a tiny twitch of the mouth that didn't reach his eyes. "I need you to call someone for me." "Who?" He stepped closer and my heart kicked hard. The hazards made his face flash red once every second. His cheeks were dirty, his lips cracked, his eyes wide but unfocused. "Just call," he said quietly. "Just a call." That was when I noticed his hands. Both fists clenched tight like he was hiding something. My instinct said gun, but he didn't look like he had the balance to aim anything. "I can call," I said, keeping my tone calm. "But you gotta back up a little, okay?" He didn't move. The silence stretched long enough that my breathing got shallow. Finally he whispered, "Do you know my sister?" "What?" He blinked slowly, like he had trouble processing his own thoughts. "She told me to come here," he said. "She said someone would stop." "I'm not sure what you mean, man." His jaw twitched. "You stopped." Something icy crawled up my neck. I didn't want to escalate things, so I grabbed my phone like I was really going to dial someone. But the moment I did, he suddenly stepped forward and pressed his hands against the window. His palms were bleeding, fresh cuts, dirt in the wounds, like he'd been climbing barbed wire or broken fences. "Please," he whispered, eyes locked onto mine. "Before they come back." Every word hit like a weight. "Who's coming back?" I asked. He didn't answer. He just leaned his forehead against the glass, breathing hard like he'd been running for miles. I shifted in my seat. This wasn't a normal lost person. This was something worse, and someone scared out of their mind. Or someone whose mind wasn't working right at all. I tried to keep my voice level. "Look, I can call emergency services. If someone's after you, they can help." "No," he snapped. "Do not call the police." His face twisted, panic bursting through whatever blank expression he'd been holding. His hands slid down the window, leaving faint streaks of blood. My heart hammered against my ribs. If he didn't want cops, what did he want? Before I could ask, he leaned close again and said, "Can you unlock the door?" I swear my body froze solid. "No," I said instantly. "I'm not doing that." His head twitched in a strange, jerky movement. "But you have to. She said you would." That was enough for me. I started the engine. He slapped the window so hard I jerked back. "Don't go." I shoved the truck into gear. He stumbled back, arms dropping to his sides. Something small fell from his hand and clattered onto the pavement. A key. Just one single metal key. He stared at it like he hadn't meant to drop it. Then he looked at me again and smiled. This time the smile was real, wide, and completely wrong. I didn't drive off right away. Stupid, I know, but something about the key made me pause. Why carry a single key? Why drop it like it mattered? The man crouched, picked it up with his shaky fingers, and held it up toward my window. "It's from my locker," he said. "I don't want it anymore." My mouth went dry. "Okay, then put it on the ground." He did. But then he stepped closer, pressing his hand and cut and trembling arm against the glass again. "They locked her inside," he whispered. She kept calling me, over and over. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't think. I had to come. His breath fogged the window. "Who's they?" I asked. He stared at me, eyes glassy. "You'll help her," he said. Everything in my body screamed leave, but something about his voice made me freeze. It wasn't threatening. It was desperate. Like he genuinely believed I was supposed to be involved. "Man, listen," I said slowly. "I don't know who you're talking about. I'm just trying to finish my shift." He blinked like he didn't understand why I wasn't getting out of the truck. Then he reached into his jacket. I flinched hard, but it wasn't a weapon. It was a crumpled photo. He pressed it against the glass. It was wet from either blood or sweat. Hard to tell in the flashes of hazard light. The picture showed a girl, maybe 12 or 13, with bright hair and a shy smile. A school portrait. "This is her," he said. "They said she broke the rules. They took her. They said she'd be safe if I didn't talk." His voice cracked on the last word. My head spun. This was too much. Either this guy was deeply unstable, or something horrible was happening that I had just driven into by accident. I reached for my phone again. "I'm going to call someone." He slammed both hands against the glass. "No police!" His shout shook something in me. I threw the truck into drive and rolled forward just enough so he had to step back. He looked startled for a second. Then his face went blank. Completely blank. He lifted the photo and placed it gently on my side mirror. The movement was slow and weirdly calm. Then he whispered, "If you drive away, they'll find me first." My hands tightened on the wheel. "Man, you have to get off the road. I'll get you help." He stepped back into the dark, into the grass beyond my headlights. And then he was gone. Just gone. My lights hit nothing but empty field. I swallowed hard, heart pounding in my throat. I grabbed the photo with shaking fingers and held it under the dome light. The girl's smile. Something about it made my chest tighten. I don't know why. I don't know her. I don't know him. But the fear in his voice wouldn't leave my head. I finally forced myself to drive. By the time I reached the next service stop, it was almost 2 a.m. The building was mostly empty except for a tired cashier and 2 teenagers sharing fries. I washed my hands 3 times, trying to get the image of his bloody palms out of my head. Then I sat in a booth and stared at the photo. Who was she? Why did he think I could help? And what did he mean by they? I debated calling the police anyway. But the memory of his panic kept stopping me. What if he wasn't lying? What if involving cops put the girl in danger? If she even existed? I tried searching for missing kid reports in the area, but the service stop had horrible reception. Nothing would load. After 20 minutes of spiraling thoughts, I realized I hadn't seen the man walk past my truck when I left. He vanished into the field, sure, but fields don't just swallow people. I forced myself back onto the road, wanting to put as much distance between me and that stretch as possible. But as the miles passed, the unease only grew. A little after 3 a.m., I slowed for construction near Red Hollow. My headlights caught something reflective on a signpost ahead. I didn't want to look, but I did. A single metal key hung from the bolt on the post. The same shape. Same dull shine. My stomach dropped. I didn't stop. Didn't pull over. Didn't breathe. I made it to Rapid City just after sunrise. Dropped the trailer and checked into a cheap motel. I kept the photo in my jacket pocket. I told myself I'd throw it away, but I haven't. It's been 3 months. I still drive that route sometimes. And every time I pass that long, empty stretch near the ranch land, I swear I see a shape near the fence, sometimes standing still, sometimes moving. Always watching the road, and I can't tell if I'm hoping it's him or scared it actually is.